On the morning of July 8, 1977, while most Americans were beginning another ordinary workday, specially assigned FBI agents were preparing to execute one of the most significant search operations in the history of federal law enforcement. Months of planning had led to this moment. Federal judges had approved search warrants for Church of Scientology offices after investigators gathered evidence suggesting that an organized operation had infiltrated agencies of the United States government. The agents entered Scientology offices in Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles, presenting court-authorized search warrants before beginning a systematic search of the buildings. Every action was carefully documented. Almost immediately, investigators discovered room after room filled with correspondence, memoranda, reports, organizational charts, and thousands of internal documents. Each document was photographed, cataloged, and preserved according to strict federal evidence procedures. Investigators understood that every page might later become evidence inside a federal courtroom. As the search continued, investigators realized they were not uncovering isolated records. They were recovering the written history of an organization whose activities extended far beyond the United States, targeting government agencies, embassies, and organizations in more than 30 countries. One name appeared repeatedly throughout the recovered files: Operation Snow White. At first, investigators did not fully understand what it meant. But with every new document, the scope of the operation became clearer. The documents repeatedly identified the Guardian's Office, the Church of Scientology organization responsible for legal affairs, intelligence gathering, and government relations. Its controller, Mary Sue Hubbard, occupied one of the highest leadership positions within the Guardian's Office. According to the government's case, investigators concluded that Operation Snow White was administered through this highly organized chain of command. Following the July 1977 raids, the investigation entered a new phase. Teams of FBI agents spent months examining thousands of documents recovered from Scientology offices. Every memorandum, report, routing slip, and organizational chart was carefully analyzed to determine how the operation functioned and who directed it. As investigators organized the evidence, Operation Snow White emerged as the largest domestic federal government infiltration investigation the FBI had encountered to that point. According to the government's evidence, hundreds of Guardian's Office personnel and related participants carried out assignments over a period of years to identify and correct what the church believed were false, defamatory, or inaccurate government records about Scientology and its founder, L. Ron Hubbard. Investigators concluded they were examining a coordinated operation extending far beyond the actions of only a few individuals. The recovered documents repeatedly identified Mary Sue Hubbard, controller of the Guardian's Office, as one of its senior leaders. According to federal prosecutors, the Guardian's Office operated through a disciplined chain of command with written directives, regular reporting procedures, and carefully documented communications. According to the government's case, church participants applied and were hired at the IRS, the Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and other federal agencies. Over a period of years, they gathered information and attempted to influence or correct records the church believed were false, defamatory, or inaccurate concerning Scientology and its founder, L. Ron Hubbard. Investigators concluded they were examining a coordinated operation extending far beyond the actions of only a few individuals. The evidence recovered during the searches enabled investigators to compare internal Guardian's Office communications with government records. Prosecutors argued that the documentary evidence demonstrated a carefully organized effort carried out over several years. Months of investigation eventually led federal prosecutors before a grand jury. Thousands of recovered documents, together with witness testimony and additional evidence, formed the basis of one of the largest criminal cases ever brought against senior officials of the Church of Scientology. On August 15, 1978, a federal grand jury returned indictments against 11 senior Guardian's Office officials. The government's investigation had moved from secret evidence rooms into the public courtroom, where Operation Snow White would now be examined under the scrutiny of the American judicial system. Following months of investigation, the government's case entered the federal court system. Prosecutors presented thousands of recovered documents, together with witness testimony and additional evidence. The investigation that had begun with search warrants was now being tested before the American judicial system. Among the defendants was Mary Sue Hubbard, controller of the Guardian's Office. Federal prosecutors alleged that the documentary evidence demonstrated that Operation Snow White had been directed through the Guardian's Office using written orders, internal reports, and a structured chain of command. Rather than proceed through lengthy trials, several defendants entered guilty pleas. Federal prosecutors exercised prosecutorial discretion that resulted in convictions involving 11 senior Guardian's Office officials, bringing one of the largest criminal prosecutions in Scientology's history to its conclusion. The sentences reflected the seriousness of the offenses. Mary Sue Hubbard received a 5-year federal prison sentence. Cindy Raymond received 5 years. Gerald Bennett Wolfe received 5 years. Henning Helt received 4 years. Duke Snyder received 4 years. Gregory Willardson received 4 years. Richard Wigand received 4 years. Mitchell Herman received 4 years. Sharon Thomas received 1 year, with part of the sentence suspended. Jane Kember and Morris Mo Budlong, extradited from the United Kingdom, each received sentences of 2 to 6 years. The convictions marked the end of years of investigation. Senior Guardian's Office officials entered the federal prison system to begin serving their court-imposed sentences, bringing Operation Snow White to its legal conclusion. Throughout the investigation, one question continued to draw public attention. What role had Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard played? Federal prosecutors identified L. Ron Hubbard as an unindicted co-conspirator in the case. Although prosecutors believed evidence connected him to the conspiracy, he was never formally charged, never stood trial, and never served a prison sentence in connection with Operation Snow White. Following the convictions, the Church of Scientology dissolved the Guardian's Office. Many of its responsibilities were transferred to a newly established organization known as the Office of Special Affairs, marking the end of the Guardian's Office as it had existed during Operation Snow White. More than 4 decades later, Operation Snow White remains one of the most significant federal investigations involving the Church of Scientology. Through patient investigative work, thousands of recovered documents, and years of legal proceedings, federal authorities exposed an operation that prosecutors alleged involved hundreds of Guardian's Office personnel and related participants working to obtain government information and influence records concerning Scientology. The story stands as a reminder that some of history's most important investigations are solved not by dramatic chases or confessions, but by careful investigators, court-authorized searches, and thousands of documents that reveal the truth one page at a time. Thank you for watching.